Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to presenting our material about problem in translation. First of all, I would like to introduce myself and my friends. I'm Dzurrotun Nafisah and my student ID number is 193200164. And there are my friends Wilma, Afrilia, and Ika Ni'matin Ulya. Well, there are three problems in translation that we are going to explain in this opportunity, namely ambiguity, lexical and grammatical differences, and multi-word units, idioms, and collocations. Okay, the first one is ambiguity. Ambiguity is the presence of two or more possible meanings in a single passage. Translation ambiguity occurs when a word in one language can be translated in more than one way into another language. Every word would have one and only one meaning, but as we all know, this is not the case. When a word has more than one meaning, it is said to be lexically ambiguous. When a phrase or sentence can have more than one structure, it is said to be structurally ambiguous. There are four kinds of ambiguity, and the first one is lexical ambiguity. The multiple meaning of the utterance depends on the meaning of the single word. For example, John saw her duck. Here, duck can refer to an action, it means lowering head or the upper body, or refer to a waterfall. The next example is the fisherman went to the bank. Bank interpreted a river bank or a financial institution license. And the last example is I have found a button. Button can refer to an electrical equipment or a small disc sewn on to a garment. Next, structural ambiguity. Structural ambiguity, also called syntactic ambiguity. It occurs when a phrase or sentence has more than one underlying structure. For example, Annie bumped into a man with an umbrella. This sentence has two possible meanings. They are Annie had an umbrella and she bumped into a man, or Annie bumped into a man when he carried an umbrella. Next, she is eating the fish on the table. This sentence also has two possible meanings. They are she is eating the fish which is on the table, or she is eating the fish while sitting on the table. Next is phonological ambiguity. Words that sound the same but have different meanings and can be used in very different ways. Called phonological ambiguity. This ambiguity occurs only in spoken language, such as in direct conversation, delivering speech, and so on. For example, I can hear the sea in the shell. Can you see the shell here? The word see and see have similar sound but different meaning. See, S-E-E means perceive with the eyes, while see, S-E-A means a large lake. The next example, and you know it would be alright for you to write and practice these patterns every day because you want to master these skills, right? The word write and write have similar sound but different meaning. Write, R-I-A-G-H-N-T means true or correct, while write, W-R-I-T-E means marked letters or word on surface. And the next is referential ambiguity. We make reference to a certain entity but realize that the entity we are pointing to is more than one. For example, an indefinite referring expression may be specific or not. I want to buy a magazine. Which magazines? Tempo magazine or Cosmopolitan magazine or Boho magazine. Anaphora. Anaphora is unclear because a personal pronoun he, she, it, or they can be linked to either of two referring expressions. Louis told Mark the interviewer was waiting for him. This him can refer to Louis and refer to Mark. The pronoun you is used generically or specifically. If you want to be a successful person, you have to work hard. Is word you is the addresses or the sentence a general platitude? Actually, we do know exactly. We do know for sure. And the last example is a noun phrase with every can be distributed reference or collected reference. I gave a snack to everyone in the class. This sentence means one snack for all people in the class or one snack for each person in the class. How to avoid ambiguity? Uh, in this video, I gave 4 ways to avoid ambiguity, and the first one is be careful with the prepositions. The thing about prepositional phrases such as the murderer killed the student with a book is that it is not always clear what they are modifying. The ambiguity in that sentence is entirely based on the preposition with. Does with modify killed or modify student could go either way. It is always important to be careful with your prepositions because this sentence uh, also has two possible meaning. They are he had a book and he killed the student with that book, or he killed the student when the student broke a book. Okay, next, use commas correctly. Commas exist primarily to resolve syntactic ambiguity. If you are worried that your sentences are too ambiguous, try working on your grammar and punctuation, especially when it comes to commas. Next, don't assume that your reader will interpret things correctly. What you say might be clear enough to you, but the reader might interpret it differently. To write clearly, you need to develop the skill of seeing your own writing from a reader's perspective. And the last way is in lexical ambiguity, when it comes to word choice, you also want to make sure that the word fits, taking into account whatever contingencies you can think of with a bit of imagination. Well, further explanation would be presented by my friends.
Hi class, my name is Ika Ni'matin Ulya and my student number is 1932-157. And as the next presenter, I'm going to present lexical and grammatical differences. A word as a lexical unit of a language carries many meanings. The lexical meaning of a word is not one-to-one. In lexical differences include problems of equivalence, differential, and non-differential. Like in the word house, in Indonesian will be translated as rumah or gedung tempat tinggal, and it also can be translated as dewan or the house of representative. Meaning also varies across languages, and it has two kinds. The first one is non-differential. It's a word which contains an unlimited definition and it can be explained to be more specific, while differential is a word which contains a limited definition and cannot be explained to be more specific. Like the example, the word rice is non-differential word because it can be explained to be more specific. And the word padi, gabah, beras, and nasi are differential words because those words are already specific. The semantic fields in one language are different from those in another language, like the word father, mother, brother, sister, uncle, and aunt have their own lexical meaning, but they belong to the same semantic field, that is kinship. Words that have multiple meaning or polysemous words are often untranslatable. So in translating, translator must find equivalence by considering their semantic field. And lexical semantic problems can be resolved by consulting dictionaries, glossaries, terminology bank, and experts. The next is grammatical differences. Unlike Indonesian, which use the same verb for past, present, and future situation, English has 16 different tenses. English also marked by number, aspect, and gender. The first one is time. In English, the time is grammatically marked, while in Indonesian, time is lexically marked. Let's take a look at the example. Dia menari. In English, it's hard to translate because the time is unclear. Therefore, in Indonesian, we need to add lexical to the sentence. Like the example for the past, dia menari kemarin. So it can be translated in English, she danced. For the perfect, dia telah menari. And will be translated, she has danced. And for the progressive, dia sedang menari. She is dancing. And for the future, dia akan menari, she will dance. And for the next one is plural word. In Indonesian, we usually use reduplication, like orang-orang, meja-meja, ibu-ibu, and etc. Or addition of determiner, like para, kaum, and banyak. While in English, we usually use addition of morpheme, like chair becomes chairs, and change of vowel, like the example man become man. Or we also can use transformations, like the example goose becomes geese. Aspect. In Indonesian and English are neither polysyntactic language, which aspect is indicated in the word. Aspect is a verb form or category that indicate time-related characteristic, such as the completion, duration, or repetition of an action. The aspect itself is usually marked by prefixes or suffixes or other chains on verbs, or indicated by auxiliary verb. The two primary aspects in English are the perfect, sometimes called perfective, and the progressive, also known as the continuous form. As illustrated below, these two aspects may be combined to form the perfect progressive. And for the note, in English, not all of completed action will be translated with the form of have, has, had, past participle. Let's take a look at the example. In English, time markers which indicate aspect are preposition and adverb. Like example, on Saturdays, he went to the cinema, and will be translated, setiap hari Sabtu dia pergi ke bioskop. And when he had finished his work last night, he went to the cinema. Usai merampungkan pekerjaannya tadi malam, dia pergi ke bioskop. The progressive aspect usually describes an event that takes place during a limited time period. The progressive aspect is made up of a form of be plus the ing form of the main verb. Like the example, he is eating a soup for the present, and he was eating a soup for the past. And in Indonesian, it will be translated as the same meaning. That is, dia sedang makan sup. The perfective aspect describe event occurring in the past but linked to a later time, usually the present. The perfect aspect is formed with has, have, or had plus the past participle. Like the example, she has shaved my beard for the present, and he had shaved off my beard for the past. And will be translated, dia telah mencukur jenggotku, and dia telah mencukur licin jenggotku. The perfect progressive aspect combines the meaning of the perfect and the progressive, referring to a past situation or activity that was in progress for a period of time. Like the example, they have been keeping it in a safety box for the present, and they had been keeping it in a safety box for the past. And will be translated in Indonesian, mereka telah menyimpannya dalam kotak yang aman. And for the last is gender. In English and in Indonesian, usually add suffixes, prefixes, and modifier to indicate gender. Like the example, cameraman, camerawoman. While in Indonesian will be translated as kamerawan, kamerawati, male dancer, female dancer, penari pria, penari perempuan, boyfriend, girlfriend. In Indonesian will be translated as pacar because there is no gender distinction. And brother and sister, saudara laki-laki, saudara perempuan. English use zero and is, while in Indonesian use a and I. For example, God, gadis in Indonesian will be translated dewa, dewi, steward, stewardess, pramugara, pramugari, heir, heiress, ahli waris laki-laki, ahli waris perempuan, and zero and in, hero, heroine, pahlawan pria, pahlawan wanita, with or and tricks, aviator, aviatrix, dominator, dominatrix, and Indonesia will be translated as pria and wanita. And for the example, pilot pria, pilot wanita. And for animals, there are variations like lion, lioness, peacock, peahen, cock sparrow, hen sparrow, sheep, ewe, buck rabbit, doe rabbit, deer, doe. And in Indonesians will be translated as jantan and betina. For example, singa jantan, singa betina, kelinci jantan.
Hello everyone, my name is Wilma Afrilia Rizky. My student ID number is 193200128. Now I'm going to talk about multi-word units, idioms, and collocation. First, let's begin with idioms. What is an idiom? Idiom is a group of words which have a different meaning when used together from one they would have if the meaning of each were taken individually. In Indonesian language, idiom adalah konstruksi yang maknanya tidak sama dengan gabungan makna unsurnya. Misalnya, idiom kambing hitam. Next, let's take a look at translating idioms. Idioms allow little or no variation in form and often carry meanings which cannot be deduced from their individual components. Well, we cannot normally do any of the following with an idiom. Number 1, change the order of the word in it. We cannot change the idiom, the short and the long of it, because the correct form is the long and short of it. Number 2, we cannot delete a word from it. We cannot delete the article the from the idiom spill the beans. Number 3, we cannot add a word to it. So we cannot add the word very in idiom, the long and short of it. Number 4, replace a word with another. For example, we cannot change the word long with the word tall. Number 5, change its grammatical structure. For example, we cannot change the idiom face the music with the music was fetched. Next, problems in translating idioms. According to Mona Baker, there are some difficulties in translating idioms that the translator might encounter. Number 1, difficulties involved in recognizing the idioms. Well, not all idioms are understood easily. There are times when the idiom have similarity with expressions that are general in nature. For example, the idiom make it. It is an idiom which means to come or datang in Indonesia. It is same as non-idiomatic expression to make it, which means to make something atau membuat sesuatu. So, because of this similarity, the translator may not realize if the sentence contains an idiom. Number 2, difficulties in interpreting the meanings of the idiom. Well, sometimes it is difficult to understand the meaning of the idiom, and many idioms rarely used. Next, number 3, difficulties in rendering the various aspects of meaning that an idiom conveys into the target language. For example, in English, idiom selling oneself. It has equivalent idiom in Indonesian language in terms of the form menjual diri. But menjual diri has negative connotation, while the selling oneself has positive connotation. Number 4, difficulties in finding the equivalent idiom in the target language. So, even though the translator understands the meaning of the idiom in source language, but translator may not find equivalent idioms in target language. Next, there are some strategies of translating idiom. Number 1, using an idiom of similar meaning and form. Sometimes an idiom have same meaning as an idiom in another language. For example, the English idiom to lose face. It has same meaning as an Indonesian idiom kehilangan muka. So, the translator can translate an idiom with same meaning and form in target language. Number 2, using an idiom of similar meaning but dissimilar form. A translator can translate an idiom in source language with an idiom that already exists in the target language and has same meaning but in different form or uses different word. For example, there is a hidden meaning behind something. It has similar meaning with Indonesian idiom ada udang di balik batu. So, it is not identical form but has same meaning. Number 3, translation by paraphrase. On some occasion, a translator encounters idiom in source language that doesn't have any equivalence in target language. In this case, the translator can translate the idiom with general expression that represent the meaning of idiom in target language. Number 4, translation by omission. So, it is possible for a translator to eliminate an idiom in the sense of not translating an idiom in source language to target language, because the meaning of idiom is no longer relevant to be present in target language. Number 5, translation by compensation. Compensation can be used to translate an expression that is not an idiom to become an idiom. Next, let's move to collocation. What is a collocation? A collocation is typically defined as the habitual co-occurrence of individual lexical items. It is a combination of two or more words that always occur together consistently in different texts and contexts in a language. In Indonesian language, kolokasi adalah menggandengkan dua kata yang sudah sangat lazim, sehingga kedua kata ini nyaris tak dapat diganti dengan istilah lain, sekalipun dengan makna yang sama. Next, translating collocation. According to Peter Newmark, there are three main types of collocation that affect translation. Number 1, adjective plus noun, such as runaway, economic situation. Number 2, noun plus noun, such as nerve cell, government securities, eyeball. Number 3, verb plus object, such as pay a visit, score a victory, read a paper, and many more. Next, let's take a look at problems in translating collocation. The English collocation, which poses a translation problem. Number 1, the engrossing effect of source text partnering. A translator will not find any problem with differences in lexical patterns between source language and the target language if the collocation in target language are used to express the same meaning in the source language can be found. For example, kata shoes repair diterjemahkan dengan kata réparer dalam bahasa Prancis. Padahal kata tersebut hanya lazim berkolokasi dengan kata automobile dan bukan dengan sepatu. Jadi, pemilihan kata réparer menjadi kolokasi yang tidak lazim. Number 2, misinterpreting the meaning of a source language collocation. A translator can easily misinterpret a collocation in the source text due to interference from his or her native language. Next, the tension between accuracy and naturalness. Translating collocation in the source language into an accurate and acceptable language in the target language. For example, collocation hard drinks refers only to spirits in English, such as whiskey, gin, and brandy. But in Arabic language, this collocation refers to any alcoholic drink, including beer, largely sherry, as well as spirit. Number 4, culture-specific collocation. The source text contains collocation which convey what to the target reader would be unfamiliar association of ideas. For example, the collocation ladies and gentlemen diterjemahkan menjadi bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu dalam bahasa Indonesia. Hal ini terjadi karena adanya perbedaan budaya antara keduanya. Budaya Barat menganut paham ladies first, sedangkan budaya Timur atau budaya Asia, wanita masih dianggap inferior terhadap pria, dan bahkan sebagian besar masyarakat masih menganut paham patriarki. Oleh karena itu, wanita masih berada di belakang pria. Number 5, mark collocation in the source text. Unusual combination of words are sometimes used in the source text in order to create new image. And the last is strategies of translating collocation. According to Larson, there are 4 strategies in analyzing meanings in collocation. Number 1, collecting data. We must first collect as many examples of the use of the word as possible. Number 2, sort the collocates into the generic classes. For example, in animal, there are cat, dog, horse, and many more. And part of the body, there are eyes, nose, mouth, and many more. Number 3, regroup the context according to the collocate which belong to the same generic classes. Number 4, list and label the sense of the word. Well, besides that, there are other ways to translate collocation, such as using dictionary or browsing on Google. So guys, we already know some problems in translation. That's all our presentation. Thanks for your nice attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi